People of Reddit, what's the worst thing you overheard that broke your heart? Story 1. I went out to a bar with some friends for my ex-girlfriend's birthday party. Although she had hurt me badly when she left me, I decided to be nice and attend the party, planning to only stay for a drink or two. At the party, I encountered a mutual friend who had just gone through a breakup, and I tried to offer her words of encouragement and support. I knew what it felt like to go through a bad breakup, as I was also going through one at the time. However, as I left the table, I overheard my ex and the mutual friend talking about me at the bar. My ex commented, "Well, nobody has ever loved him, so what does he know about any of this?" And they laughed. Not wanting to be around people who didn't understand or support me, I immediately grabbed my coat and walked home. I haven't seen either of them since that night. It's understandable that you would want to leave the party after overhearing that kind of conversation. It's important to surround yourself with people who understand and support you, especially during difficult times. It's never easy going through a breakup, but it's important to remember that you deserve to be loved and respected. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise. Story 2. My stepmother criticized me for being useless, heartless, abusive, and a leech when I couldn't afford to buy my dad a birthday gift. Instead, I painted something for him as a present. At the time, I was only 16 years old and had no money. My mother also refused to buy a gift for her ex-husband, and my stepmother never made an attempt to get to know me. This was a very painful experience for me, as art was still an important part of my life at that age, and it changed how I viewed her as a person. Story 3. When I was 7 years old, I overheard my mother crying and telling her best friend on the phone that she didn't love my father anymore, that I was the reason we were poor and she wasn't happy, that I was the reason she didn't want to be a mother anymore. She said she didn't know how to love someone who ruined her entire life. It was Christmas Eve and she was drunk. This broke my heart and spirit, and it was only the beginning of my difficult childhood. I'm 12 years younger than my older sisters, and I was unplanned. I moved out when I was 15 to protect myself and have no contact with my parents now. I understand it wasn't my fault I was born, but this memory still affects me deeply. Story 4. At a barbecue, a friend of mine got drunk while her kids and husband were present. When it was suggested that someone drive her home, she became extremely upset. I quickly took her children into my car to protect them from hearing her cursing and ranting. Her oldest son asked me what was wrong with her, and I explained that Mommy just drank too much bad stuff, and it has made her sick. She's just sick right now, but she will feel better later. He responded, "Oh, she's drunk again." Her youngest child was crying and kept asking me, "How much longer until Mommy feels better?" I didn't know how to respond. It's so sad to see someone close to you struggle with addiction, especially in front of their own family. It's heartbreaking to see innocent kids caught in the middle, and the guilt you must feel trying to explain it to them. Hopefully, your friend will get the help she needs and be able to be the mother that her kids deserve. Story 5. I work at a castle that holds medieval banquets, one of the features of which is that we offer free wine. The banquet lasts for 2.5 hours, so if you choose to, you can get quite drunk. One day, as the banquet was coming to an end and we were saying goodbye to the guests, one woman was quite inebriated. She was knocking into walls, knocking things off of them, insulting me and my manager and her manager who was visiting. Her husband was outside in the smoking area, ignoring the situation and only sending their probably 8-year-old son to try and get her out of the building. "Come on, Mom, it's time to go. Dad says we have to leave now. The castle is closing," the son pleaded, his voice sad and resigned, as if he had seen this behavior repeatedly. We managed to get her out of the door, and myself and my colleagues went to change out of costume and collect our tips. About 5 minutes later, I left by the same door and headed out to my car. I found the woman a few yards off the gravel path, lying on her back in a large patch of briars. She had gone off to look at the view of the bay. The castle is by the sea, slipped and fallen completely into the thorns. She was covered in blood from 100 tiny cuts. The son was crying, pleading with her to stand up. "Come on, Mom, you can do it. I know you can, Mom. Please, please, just try, Mom." I don't know how he held it together. There were tears in his voice, even if there were none in his eyes. And the damn father? He was down the road at the end of the path, maybe 60 yards away, leaning on a wall and smoking a cigarette without a care in the world. I walked down to him and hissed at him to go and get his car and drive it to the foot of the path, as his wife was unable to walk to the car park. He was as aloof as Viserys Targaryen and nonchalantly sauntered off to the car park. Me and 2 other staff members managed to get her upright, and I cleaned up her cuts with a med kit from work. She was out of her mind by this point, laughing and gurgling and wiping her blood over us. Her kid was embarrassed, ashamed, and crying. God, I was so simultaneously sad and angry driving home after work that night. TLDR, if you know your wife is an alcoholic, don't bring her and your kid to an all-you-can-drink buffet. Story 6. When I was a child, my brother used to physically abuse me every day when my parents weren't home. It wasn't just fighting, it was torture. He used to tie me up, shoot me with BB guns, whip me with tea towels, use heated teaspoons on my legs, and more. It was especially difficult because I am a girl, 3 years younger than him. One day my mother was out for a rare night out playing darts, and my father was supposed to stay home with us. He's an alcoholic, so nothing would stand in the way of him going to the pub, which was just at the bottom of my road. My brother had been hinting at what he was going to do when my father went out, and I was terrified. I begged my father not to go out, crying and pleading. I never used to tell on my brother, no matter what he did, but I was so scared that I was crying and crying, asking my father to stay home just this once. He knew what was going on, but he ignored it and went out anyway. I sat at his bedroom window and watched him leave. My neighbor saw me and told me years later it was the saddest thing she had seen because I was obviously so scared. Needless to say, I was terrorized as expected. Edit. Thank you all so much for your comments. In response to questions that have been asked a couple of times now, we maintain a relationship where I am basically the person who sorts out his life for him. It's hard, but I am basically his replacement mother. No, I have never confronted him about the things he did. I don't know if I can. Story 7. I was at the local casino around 15 years ago, and they were dragging a woman out for causing a disturbance. She was yelling, "He's spending our rent money!" Apparently he was at the table and wouldn't stop playing, and she was trying to interrupt it. It made me feel really sad. Damn, I think the real sad part about this story is that the manager would still allow him to play after this. The house always wins, right? Ugh, humanity is really going in a very wrong direction in lots of ways. Story 8. For my son's 9th birthday, I took him and a handful of friends to the movies, then to pizza, and they all slept over. On the way home from pizza, the kids were commenting on how great the night was, and were saying thank you. I replied, "We love having kids over." Out of the blue, one boy quietly whispered to me, "My mom doesn't love me." It broke my heart into pieces. I asked him why he said that, and he said, "She always left me. I would wake up and she would be gone." Come to find out, he had just been placed with his dad, whom he barely knew. The state had taken him away from his mom for neglect, leaving him alone every night to go to the bar. It had been going on for years, and the neighbors would hear him crying alone and call the cops. His mom is a raging alcoholic and a drug addict to this day. His dad had only met him once before and was currently living with a new girlfriend who didn't like kids. His son was now sleeping on the floor of the girlfriend's apartment as there was no room for him. It was heartbreaking. To make matters worse, he sat alone every day after school on the steps of the library waiting for his dad, sometimes until past 7 p.m. When I found out, I had him over every single day, eating a snack, doing homework together with my son, and eating dinner most nights. Less than a year later, his father asked if I could take him for a while. He had broken off with the girlfriend and had nowhere to go and nowhere to bring his son. I, a single mom of one son, had no problem and always had room for anyone who needed to stay. His dad brought over all of his clothes in a garbage bag, everything he owned. He never officially became mine, but I became his adopted mom since that time, bringing him to the doctor, going to parent-teacher conferences, music concerts, etc. He's 19 now and doing fantastic. He made it through high school at an honors AP level and then went to college on a full scholarship. But better than that, he is an awesome person. Funny, smart, kind, and loving. I love my adopted son. Story 9. Not exactly overheard, but last week I was hanging out at a friend's house, and around midnight, a bunch of police cars and an ambulance showed up at his neighbor's house. We noticed the police talking to the little boy who lives there. We knew the boy pretty well. He's a good friend of my friend's son. We'll call him Martin, and he's around 7 years old. After the police left, Martin was sitting outside, and we called him over to see if everything was okay. We assumed something had happened with his grandpa, who also lives with him, because of the ambulance. But as soon as we said, "Hey, Martin, what was going on there?" he instantly yelled, "Nobody hit me. My daddy doesn't hit me." It made us so sad. Story 10. I phoned my friend and asked him if he wanted to hang out. I was maybe 10. He said he had to ask his mom. I heard him say, "Johnny wants to do something, but I don't want to see him." I guess he either thought he muted the phone or did a poor job muffling it. Then he came back to the phone. "Sorry, my mom said I can't." He was a terrible friend over the years. Shoot, this is definitely a tough situation to be in, but at least you now know that you don't have to deal with someone who is never truly a friend. Better to have found out early on than to have wasted more time on them. Story 11. Last night, I heard a little boy beg his mom not to go into a liquor store. Some background. I live in Oklahoma, where the only place you can purchase alcohol besides Low Point beer is in a licensed, dedicated liquor store, which can only be open at certain times of day. Anyway, as I was heading to the store near my house to buy a bottle of scotch, as I was walking in, I heard a little boy crying, "Mommy, you can't go in there. You don't need liquor." His mom replied, "Yes, I do. Now shut up and wait in the car." I haven't been able to think of much else since then. Story 12. Not overheard, but actually read in a file about me. My mother passed away suddenly, and I received a file from my father that she had intended to give to me. It contained a psychological profile, along with tests, personality tests, and other information. This wasn't a surprise to me since I am autistic and had been in therapy as a child. However, there was a part of the file that detailed the difficulties my family had in living with me. Especially my brothers and my father had problems coping, and learning how my existence impacted them was difficult. My parents divorced largely because of me. Despite these challenges, I'm doing better than expected. I was never supposed to be able to live on my own. There was talk of assisted living or even institutionalization, but somehow I managed to leave home as soon as I turned 18. I got married, had kids, and even though I struggle a lot, I get by. Story 13. I saw that two girls I had roomed with for a short while in college had been publicly posting on Facebook about how weird, annoying, and disrespectful I was. Their reasoning was that I was taking an 8:30 a.m. class, and only weirdos did that, and that I made a lot of noise every morning and disrupted their sleep. It hurt because I had tried really hard to not be disruptive. I wouldn't let my alarm go off because I woke up naturally around the time it was scheduled and would just turn it off before it beeped. This was partially out of anxiety. I changed clothes in the bathroom, tiptoed everywhere, and wouldn't even eat or zip my backpack in the room because I wanted to be quiet. As far as I knew, neither of them woke up any of those mornings, and they never said anything to me about it. Yeah, you don't need people like that in your life. You tried your best to be friends with them, and they did the worst thing they could behind your back. Story 14. My wife had a falling out with some friends of mine that she met through me. We had known them for a long time, but I had known them for even longer. I was upset with her one night because they were always asking why she never came around anymore, but she refused to see them. I thought it was because of a failed business project they had gone into together. As I was driving my wife somewhere, I became upset with her for not reconciling with them and moving past the issue. I felt it was unfair that she never came with me when I visited them. Finally, she opened up and told me the truth. Every time she went into their place without me, they would talk badly about me, criticizing my personality and humor. They thought she would be okay with it, thinking it was all in good fun, but she was disgusted by the way they spoke about me behind my back. She's not confrontational and never spoke up, but she refused to have anything to do with them anymore. She had been letting me think it was her fault to avoid hurting my feelings, and it did hurt my feelings. I can't even imagine how hurtful it must have been for your wife to go through that behind your back, and for you to find out in the way that you did is just not cool. I'm glad she finally opened up and told you the truth. It's better to know the truth than to be in the dark about it. And honestly, it's for the better that you and your wife are no longer friends with people who speak about you behind your back. It's not worth the stress and hurt. Keep your head up and surround yourself with people who truly have your back. Story 15. When I was a preteen, I posted a picture of myself online with a minor celebrity. Later, I found out that it had been reposted on a message board where the majority of the comments were about how ugly and pale I was. The only person who said anything nice was someone who commented, "Don't say that. She posts here sometimes and she's really nice." Story 16. If another nurse had been taking care of him, he'd be alive right now. I spent the entire night running around trying to stabilize a patient, and my colleague, who was a total witch, sat there talking crap with another colleague, also a witch, loudly discussing how incompetent I was the whole time. Neither of them lifted a finger to help. When the patient crashed, both of them mysteriously disappeared, and it was the nurses from the other side of the hallway who came to help with the code. They came after everything was said and done, and then I overheard one of them say that. Then they proceeded to tell the unit manager that I was incompetent and crying at the bedside. Thankfully, neither of them work on the unit anymore. Story 17. I overheard a maintenance worker in my apartment arguing with his drunk wife one night. His stepson, who was about 5 years old, yelled, "I hate you! You're not my dad!" I'm pretty sure the guy started crying afterwards. He's such a nice guy, too. Reply 1. My little brother is adopted, and we told him so he knew. One day, when he was being a teenager, he said, "I don't care. You're not my real parents anyway." I think they were fighting because he was grounded and wanted to go to a friend's party anyway. He never said it again and still feels guilty about it. My point is, even though he's 5, the kid probably will realize he overstepped a boundary, unless he's just a total brat. Story 18. In line at Taco Bell, I was irritated at how long this woman and her child were taking, until I found out what was going on. She was counting every penny. The child said, "It's okay, Mom, we don't need the food items." I swear to God, I thought I was on the set of a live Charles Dickens story. You could see they didn't have much. The mom looked malnourished and both of them were skinny. I went up to the counter and said, "No, how much is it? It's a holiday gift from your neighbor." The lady tried to refuse, but I insisted. It wasn't some huge act of charity on my part. I wasn't trying to get karma for it. It was only a few more dollars. I paid the amount she needed and she thanked me. It didn't make me feel much better. All I could think about was, what are they gonna do for breakfast? Please leave your story down below in the comments. I would absolutely love to make a video about them in the future. And also don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, Brainy fam, peace.